He bore my sins in his body on the tree, so there is a real sense in which Christ is actually there, and I am representationally, or more exactly, federally present. In the early 2000s, I was in London taking a class, and I was in the back seat of a taxi late one night, being driven back to the campus where I was studying, and the taxi driver said, detecting from my accent that I was not from London, the taxi driver said, assuming I was an American, said, "Why did you invade Iraq?" I was in seminary in Los Angeles when the Iraq invasion happened under George W. Bush. But he didn't say, why did George W. Bush send the troops into Iraq? He didn't ask about the Pentagon. He didn't ask about, he asked the guy in the back seat of the taxi late one night, me, why did you invade Iraq? And I thought, but I didn't. But inasmuch as I am part of a federal republic, and persons acting on my behalf, representatives, that doesn't mean I always personally agree with what my representatives do, granted, but they act on behalf of, so that we can say America invaded Iraq, and I, being an American, as it were, get federally caught up and implicated. So I can voice my personal opinions, good, bad, or indifferent about what the federal representatives do. But he understood that there was some, watch this, some solidaric bond. There was some solidaric connection that I had to the decisions carried out by the federal government, which were being carried out in my place and for me. Supposedly, when the federal government acts federally, they're acting on behalf of the interest of those they represent. Okay, you shake your heads. I'm painting an ideal picture for you here. Why did you invade Iraq? And I thought, but I didn't. But federally, in some respect, I took his meaning. When Christ acts in obedience, death, and resurrection, he does not act because of a need that he has personally to obey. As a divine son, he's not under the law, but he's lawgiver. But as man, he subjects himself under the law, and as man, he becomes man so that he might represent me and do so in my place and for my sake. He acts as a public person, and I am, in that respect, representationally in Christ when he historically obeys, dies, and raises. 2 Corinthians 5, verses 14 to 15 sum this up very well. There Paul says, "For the love of Christ controls us, having concluded this, that one died for all," now listen to this next line, "therefore all died." One died for all, therefore all died. So it's not just that Christ, for whomever Christ died, the same died with him. Okay, and the death he died to sin once for all. And therefore he died for, and he died for all, so that they who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who, and now he puts it together, died and rose again on their behalf. Substitutionary atonement, also substitutionary resurrection. Okay, those things are inseparable, they go together. He died for me, he was raised for me, so that I died with him federally, and I was raised up with him federally. What are we waiting for? Well, me to be born, for one thing, in order to apply it to me personally. All for whom Christ died, died with him, it says. The pattern of federal union, in one respect, precedes Christ in historical terms. We find a parallel arrangement in the case of Adam. Romans 5, and I won't read through the entirety of Romans 5, but Romans 5, just beginning in verse 12, says, "Therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, thus death spread to all men, because all sinned." And I think the idea is sinned in Adam. But again, you might object, but I wasn't there. By the way, the United States government is not the first rotten federal head that's ever been. Adam is. Adam is. Someone acting on my behalf and in my stead disobeyed for me and triggered death sanctions against me and caused me to lose original righteousness and alienated me from the life of God, and in him I sinned and in him I died.